It did a number on me. It was really draining. It was really difficult. I went from like having the biggest career, ever on TV for me, and then kind of losing everything and figuring out like, who am I? Who am I without the accolades? Like, what does this mean? When the phone stops ringing and I'm not getting the jobs anymore. And
all right, this is the Story Series podcast where we tell the stories behind the people. Tanya Memme, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited about this.
I'm thrilled you're here. For those who don't know who you are, I'm just going to read a brief introduction. Sure. So you are a TV host and executive producer of hit shows like Sell This House, which ran for 10 seasons. You've conducted hundreds of celebrity red carpet interviews. You're also an inspirational speaker, and you help others shine through your Mastering the Spotlight Academy, where you deliver powerful talks on confidence, communication, and personal transformation. But I feel like reading about you, with all that you've done, that introduction barely scratches the surface.
It's been an interesting journey, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fascinating. And I love, as an opportunity just to get to know you a little bit better, I love to start with origin stories.
Yeah.
So if you could, where did you grow up?
So I grew up on what is called a sod farm. So I don't know if you know what that means.
No,
Okay.
not what is a
so
sod?
Funny how a lot of people don't know in Los Angeles, they don't know what that means. So sod is grass, really. So my family owned a grass farm where I grew up on 400 acres of like forever backyard of just pure, beautiful grass. And in the back, left corner was a huge greenhouse. So that was the first company that my family started in my lifetime when I was a baby. And so I grew up on a farm, and all my friends had animals like a barn and a normal farm, and we had a sod farm. So that's kind of where it all started. I had a great childhood, very nature oriented. And I've always, I guess at the time I remember waking up when I was 11 years old thinking I want to be on TV. And I loved the farm lifestyle, but I just wanted more. I wanted to travel. I wanted to explore life. I wanted to know what a private jet was like. I wanted to know what champagne was like. I was like, I just want to live the life. I just want to, whatever I see on TV, I want to do. I want to go to Gilligan's Island. I want to go to, and so I just was so enamored with everything on television because it was a huge escape from me from such a different life.
I was going to say, was television just your window into an outside world, a world beyond the farm?
1,000%. And I was like, I want that, like all the glitter and the glam. And I just, it's what I wanted. And I knew it at a young age. And I had no idea how I was going to get from a sod farm to, any of that. Right. And so back in the day, we didn't have social media. We probably had like maybe 15 channels. And so I thought, well, I guess the only way I can have that life is if I'm on TV. So how am I going to get on TV? And so it's either I join the local modeling studio, which is this tiny, little Niagara. I was born and raised in Niagara Falls, Canada, in a small town called Waynfleet, Ontario. And so I thought either, I join this local modeling studio or I get into pageants. And so I did both. And so I tried out for the Miss Teen Niagara pageant, and I didn't win at all. I was very, very shy. I've had a very hard time public speaking and getting on stage. And meanwhile, I wanted to be on camera, but I was just completely, I thought I'm out of my mind for wanting this because I'm just not confident at all on stage. So I had every nightmare that any pageant, little 15-year-old pageant, first pageant time goer could have happened. I was on stage. I made it to the last 5 girls, and the judge asked me, what is euthanasia? And I just stood there, and I had no idea.
He asked you what euthanasia was?
Yeah. That was the question, the judge's question. So every pageant girl is so freaked out, but like, what is that question that the judges are going to ask you?
So what is the format of this structure? Because I feel like everybody has like a loose idea in mind of what a beauty pageant is or how it right, but that question, that's a real question.
It's a tough question for a 15-year-old.
Yeah,
especially back then too. Like, I don't know. I don't even know if my daughter, she's 14. I don't know if she knows what that. I don't think she knows what it means.
Right. Maybe for the better. I don't know. So I'm just, why was that part of the format?
So I honestly think at the time you're supposed to be very up to date with your current events. And there was a lot of talk of euthanasia in the news.
So it was a current story circulating.
Ish. It wasn't the top. It was an ish type of current story. You know what I mean? It was there, but it wasn't blatant, but still, I didn't know what it was. And I stood there and I said, well, I don't. So you stand there and you're shaking and you're like, okay, so there's 200 people in the audience. You're like, okay, so I can either guess at it, I walk off stage right now, or I just say, I don't know. So in your mind, you're going, and I have to make up that decision in 3 seconds. So I thought, okay, I'm going to guess because that's like my highest odds of maybe getting it right. So I said, well, I think it's like young people in Asia and they, and they just have fun and they're really cool. And I just,
Yeah, that's
they're
youth
young,
in
it's
Asia.
youth in. And anyways, that is what I said. And the whole audience started laughing and it was very embarrassing. And so my worst nightmare came true. And I have to tell you, thank God that there are no such things as cell phones and videos because like that, because it probably would have changed the trajectory of my entire career had that ended up all over the internet. But it didn't because we didn't have cell phones then.
That's unreal.
And
Do you remember the
yeah.
other questions that the other contestants were
No,
asked?
I mean, I was just,
Blacked
that's all
out
I
at that
remember
point.
at that point.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
It was awful. And then I never thought I would ever be on stage. I never thought I would ever act. I never thought I would ever do anything ever again in front of anybody. I was so humiliated. I cried for months. And then my dad said to me, he goes, look, the only way that you're going to get past a fear is if you get back on the horse. Once you fall off, you got to get back on and keep riding. And so when the Miss Niagara pageant came about, I had a few people that were really encouraging me to do the Miss Niagara pageant. I was like, oh my God, okay, whatever. And I was so scared, so nervous. So I studied really hard. I worked out really hard. It just, everything that could have been a way in which I could have failed, I just worked really, really hard to fill all those gaps. And I thought, okay, well, if I fail this time, at least I know I was prepared the best I could be. And I ended up winning Miss Niagara. And then I went on to win Miss World Canada. And then before I knew it, I was in the Miss World pageant in Sun City, South Africa, competing with 86 of the most incredible women in the world. And it was pretty wild. Yeah, I felt like a little bit like a, blended into the wallpaper by the time I was in South Africa. And I didn't place in the top 10. But boy, was it an experience.
And you left the farm. Like that was your way.
That was my first time leaving the farm.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And think about what was ahead of you had you just decided to quit after that question that you, of course, didn't know the answer to.
Didn't know the answer, yeah.
That's and it seemed like you learned that lesson very early on.
Very early.
And credit to your dad, your parents for telling you to get back on the horse, right?
Yeah, my mom and dad were equally. They're very, very supportive. They were always, always my biggest fan. So I had a lot of support. So support, no matter what your kid wants to do, support from your parents is everything, everything. And they just believed in me no matter what I wanted to do. And they always let me decide what I wanted to do, which was really cool. So yeah.
They even early on when you expressed your desire to go on television, when you were, how did they react? Were they supportive back then too?
Yeah, they were. They were. They didn't think I was crazy. And then when I started winning the pageants, they were like, oh, well, maybe she can do this. And then I went into theater. I studied. I went to university too. So the one thing is they wanted me to go to college first. So I majored in business and I minored in theater. And then after the Miss Canada pageant stuff, sort of, that was that chapter, I decided to audition for a New York acting school, which was the American Musical Dramatic Academy. And I ended up getting in on that. So I had a lot of, there were a lot of signs that were sort of, where they were thinking, well, maybe she can do this.
There's a future on camera.
There could be, but at least she's young enough, go and follow your dreams. And if not, come back to Canada and you start doing something else,
Yeah.
They were okay with that. My dad loved it that I really wanted to go and explore the world. He wanted me to go and see the world. And that I certainly did.
Yeah.
Lots of ups, lots of downs, lots of all over the place. But I certainly have seen the world. And he very much encouraged me for that. So, yeah.
And what university were you studying at that time?
So I went to Guelph University in Canada for a year. And then I got engaged, actually. And then because of the engagement, he wanted me back in my hometown. So then I went back to Niagara Falls and I went to Brock University. And then I went there for 4 years because I lost all my first year credits. You know how that works, right?
Yep.
So I had to start over again. But while I was in that school, and I just realized that wasn't the right relationship. So the last year I was in college, I called my wedding off. And, 6 months later, I won Miss World Canada. So that's how that happened.
Wow. Those are two huge emotional extremes, right?
Oh, yeah.
In a very close amount of time.
Very very much so. And so it prepared me for more of those things in the future.
Certainly. Yeah. Yeah. But it seemed like back then you were very clear on what you wanted to do, even if you didn't know the how, but you knew what you wanted.
I was very clear.
Very
There was
determined.
no plan B, which I wouldn't say is always the best way to go about it. But at the same time, when your energy is so moving forward in that direction, like that's all I thought about was I wanted to figure out how to get to either New York or Hollywood and somehow get on television. I wanted it so badly, and I don't know why I wanted it so badly because it's a crazy career.
Yeah.
But I did. Yeah.
And what did university do for you in terms of just your craft?
It got me, like with university, it was theater, right? So I was minored in theater. So I did a lot of live performances, live shows. And so all of that helps. Every little bit it helps. And you also, like, by the time I went to New York, I had a tiny bit of a resume.
And then what are you finding? What's materializing in front of you?
I got a commercial agent and I started auditioning commercially. I also worked a lot for free. So when I first started off, I did like a PA assistant. I did anything and everything for free.
Just to get around what you want to do, right? Just to stay plugged in.
Yeah, and somehow have experience and just say that I did this, even though it was like some off Broadway production, right? And you just somewhat little by little build your resume. You have to just, that's the thing is you have to put in the sweat equity to really distinguish yourself out from the rest. And so I was willing to do that, and I did that a lot. And then finally, I got a commercial agent, and I auditioned 300 times. This is no joke. In about 5 years, 300 auditions before I got little parts here and there, or else my agents would have dropped me a long time ago. But I got my first national commercial after about 300 auditions with Tony Danza. It was an MCI commercial, which is a phone company that you probably don't have never even heard of.
Familiar. Yes.
I'm a little older than you are. And it was an MCI commercial. And and that commercial aired everywhere. And I remember I made $150,000 on it.
Huge money. That's huge money now.
Well, you don't even get that anymore. That now it would be a $5,000 buyout. It's just different now. The business is very different. There was like 25 TV channels. So if you get a commercial, an international commercial, you're making really good money. Those don't exist anymore.
Yeah. Now 150,000 was over several years, or what was that?
Yeah. I'd say it was over like 3 years.
Because it ran everywhere.
It ran everywhere. So I get all these beautiful residual checks. And so that, there were those moments where those lifesaver moments where your lifesaver was like thrown out to you in the ocean when you were sinking financially. And it was amazing how, I had that one happen. And
how did that feel for you?
I mean,
that was like kind of your first big booking, your big break being out in New York, right?
Yeah. I was even getting recognized on the street from one commercial. Like, it was insane. And, but it was great, and then that went away, the commercial stopped running, and then, you're back on the streets to try to, make ends meet again and doing your thing. And that's what it is. And then I was at the Super Bowl in Miami, and I was exhausted one night. I was dating somebody who used to go to the Super Bowl. So it was one of the perks of dating this one guy. And
good perk.
Right. I went to like 4 or 5 Super Bowls.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. This was a long time ago, but I did get to go. So sitting at the bar, and this guy, sits beside me. We're talking, and he's like, "Hey, he goes, what do you do?" I said, "Oh, I'm a host." He says, "Can you do teleprompter?" And I said, "Sure, of course I can do prompter." No idea how to do prompter. So he was an executive at DirecTV. They called me back 6 months later. So he says, "Give me your headshot. I'll see what I can do." And I kind of I tried to memorize the script to get by. 6 months later, they call me back again. Finally, after about a year and a half, they hire me to do a 30-second spot. That 30-second spot turned into a 5-year stint that I had with DirecTV. I became known as the face of DirecTV for the customer news channel on DirecTV. So I was recognized for my voice, my face. And this was when DirecTV had like 15,000 subscribers, and it grew into like multi-millions of subscribers.
Oh,
right?
yes, huge. Yeah.
Huge. So it was just right at the beginning of Direct. People didn't even know what DirecTV was at the time. And so, so that was another big thing where they paid me like $5,000 once a month to go in and film a month's worth of, customer news stuff. And that money I could afford to go back and forth from New York to LA And it kept me, I would only have to have 2 jobs instead of 5. And then I could like sleep and actually audition. So it was like little by little things like that. But that was DirecTV. I just love the company. I'll always love that company for hiring me and believing in me. And they really, whoever, the man that I ran into, Tim, in Miami that day, that was another life changer. So you just don't know where you're going to be in your life and who you're going to meet. And,
And this is a random guy at a
random
bar.
guy at a
and
bar,
He
in a
saw that you
hotel.
kind of had a vibe, like hey, I could see her on TV. Or did he recognize you at all? Or did
No. This
No.
was like way before any of that. Yeah.
No.
We were just sitting there, like, what do you do? Because
Oh,
I'm
I
sitting there
see.
exhausted. I'm just like, this was probably 10 at night.
Yeah.
After a whole night partying for the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Party after party.
Yeah.
My shoes are kicked off. My dress is like, and we just started talking. And that's how it happened. We just connected. And I ended up working on another show on Home and Family on Hallmark Channel years later with his wife, who is also a makeup artist. So it's funny how it's small business, things always come around.
Absolutely. It could be 10, 15 years and things connect in ways you wouldn't always expect it.
Yeah.
Now, when you got that job with DirecTV, what did that do for you? Obviously it's life-changing, but what did that do for you personally?
It gave me a little confidence, and I realized that I was really good at hosting. Like, I wanted to be an actress so bad, and I fought hosting so much during the day. I mean, in those days, actors were actors, hosts were hosts, commercial actors were commercial actors,
Right.
and musicians were musicians.
And even, movie actors or TV
actors.
like it's not like
Yes.
today where everything
chefs
is
are chefs.
Right.
Football
right.
players are football players. They might do a commercial.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of crossing over at all. Like if a movie started a commercial, like, that's
They're desperate, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And now it is just so entirely different. So I struggled for a few years with like, I guess I'm a host. Meanwhile, hosting is like an incredible job, and I ended up loving it. But I really had a hard time making that in my mind, like that transition, because I really wanted to be an actress. So, yeah.
And a basic question here, but in terms of skill set and just like mental preparation, how do you approach acting versus hosting?
Very different.
Yeah.
I believe I'm a great actress too, but I literally for 15 years I was under contract for whatever shows for hosting. And so I did get some acting roles, but I wasn't available to do them.
And what makes a good host? When you thought and you felt it inside that you were a great host, and clearly you are, but what does that mean?
A great host is authenticity. I believe that. Now, there's a lot of hosts out there that I don't know if they really are completely, if they're completely authentic or whatever. But for me personally, the one compliment I got from directors and from producers was they're like, but you're so authentic on camera. And it's also being able to make that connection with the audience on the other side of the camera.
Right, which obviously you can't see. So there's some sort of, that's probably, I imagine, a mental block for a lot of people, right? Where they see a camera and they freeze up.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
But you have to kind of see beyond that, right? And make that connection.
100%. And it can be learned. It can be learned for the most part. But it's a craft. It's a craft that you learn and you get better and better at it. Like when you first started your podcast, you're probably a lot better now than you were 11 episodes ago, right?
Sure. Yeah. There's things you learn, and hearing yourself, watching yourself, you're like, oh gosh, why do I always say this? Or
yeah,
you learn a lot about yourself, seeing yourself from the outside.
Yeah.
Right?
And podcasting is very different than doing a live interview with a big celebrity. And it's very different than doing, a commercial or acting so a lot of it is just, it's connecting, it's authenticity, and it's also learning how to communicate so that others can listen, so that you have influence. It's all kinds of things, but yeah.
And also, it seems like your experience in pageantry helped inform your job as a host. Is that right? Things that you picked up as in the beauty pageants.
So it's interesting because I had to sort of unlearn the beauty pageant stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
What it did do is it gave me a little more confidence of being like the familiar feeling of being on stage or being on camera. So it did that. But I had to unlearn a lot of the pageantry stuff because back in the day, especially, I keep saying back in the day, but it's like, that's the truth, right? So had to like look a certain way, stand a certain way, be a certain way, you could never slouch, you could never this. There was all these rules. You always had to be perfect. And now, I mean, with hosting, and being on camera, it's the complete opposite. So my generation went through those years from learning that TV hosts have to be perfect. And so do, pageant. When you're on TV, you have to act and look perfect. But we went through this whole metamorphosis of the perfection, and then social media comes out, and then organic this and that. And now it's like all over the place. And now like they don't want perfection. It's the complete opposite.
It's almost not trusted if it's too perfect, right?
Right, rightfully so.
Nowadays, like
rightfully so.
If it's too put together, then maybe there's a lack of perceived authenticity.
Yeah, completely. And now and I was able to, I believe, portray authenticity even when I was to stand and look perfect on camera as a host. I really, really, really love what I do, and I think it really comes out whenever. And I also care. I care about what I do. I care about the person I'm interviewing. I'm genuinely interested in other people's stories. And whenever I would walk on set, I'd be best friends with the PA I was never that person that thought I was better than anyone else. I just was there to do my job, forever so grateful that I had a job that day.
Yeah.
And so I've always come from that place.
This DirecTV hosting gig, which you talked about, was just an amazing opportunity, but you're also looking at the next thing. How did you use that to try to get to that next step of your career?
Well, I don't know if I really used it. It was just on my resume, and people started to recognize me for DirecTV. Now that could work for you or against you, because they could think, well, now everybody knows her already as a DirecTV person, so we don't want to cast her because people are going to think of her as that. So I got a little bit of that too. Sometimes when you get known for one thing, people don't want to hire you for another thing.
You're the face of
You're the face of that. Yeah. And if you're on one network, they don't want to, hire you on this network. It's always a lot. Now there's a lot of just people work on different networks and stuff. But back then it was very, very separated.
Yeah, it seems like now there's something of everyone has a personal brand, whereas back then it was the brand was the network, and everything on the network was like synonymous with the network. And you're a Fox person, you can't be over here. And but now it's like, no, this person brings this with them, so you can kind of go around. But that's now. Back then it was very stay in your lane, series of pigeonholes that you kind of had to navigate. Yeah.
So I ended up. I knew that I wanted to do more than the customer news for DirecTV, which was a great job, but I was ready to do more. So then again, here I am, auditioning like crazy. And I got a show called Robotica. And I don't know if you know who Amit Zappa is.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's huge.
He's amazing. I love Amit.
That's Frank's son.
Frank Zappa's son.
Of course, yeah.
So I got hired to co-host with Amit on a show called Robotica. And it was awesome. And we had a blast. I just ran into him in like the Palisades before the fires, about a month before the fires. I ran into him at one of our restaurants. It was really nice to catch up with him, But we hosted the show, and it was an awesome show. It was called Robotica. So I don't know if you know much about robot wars, but there was a huge, huge trend.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And I was one of the leather from head to toe and hair all over, and Amit and we hosted that show, and it was a great opportunity. So that then put me on the map as a serious contender for hosting network shows.
And why? Why did it do that DirecTV didn't?
Oh, well, DirecTV was different. It was cable. It was it was like news. It was a little like infomercial-y type thing. It was very different. Now this is like cast as a lead host on a very big show on a big network. It was on TLC.
Yeah.
Right?
And so this is just next level.
Next level. And next level job. Because now you're seen as a star.
Seen as a star. And is there a little more of you coming out in that kind of job?
Oh, way more. Yes, right? Yes.
So way more.
I get to interview.
You a little bit.
I get to, It's just a different job. It's like news anchoring, which is awesome, compared to like hosting Dancing with the Stars. Like it's just two different things.
Yes.
And equally as amazing, but two different things.
Right.
So then from that, I had to move to Los Angeles. So I moved to LA, and that was hard because I was in a serious relationship, and I had to move, and it was a whole thing. And then I auditioned for Sell This House. And then that's how it all started. So that's really where it started.
Game changer.
Game changer. But I
Yes.
didn't know it was a game changer
Right.
because I thought, like, what is this? What do you mean it's a reality show? What do you mean people can just, it was so weird because we were going from like perfect, scripted shows, really scripted, to all of a sudden this reality TV. And I couldn't wrap my head around, what do you mean reality TV? And it was a weird shift for me.
Yeah, I mean that was a whole new, genre of
Whole new genre.
television that was not firmly established in the culture yet, right?
Yeah, and I didn't have a makeup artist. I do my own hair, my own makeup, and show up with like work boots and and the thing is, like, my family, so after the sod farm, they started a construction company. So I grew up with home design, construction. My brother owns it with my cousin and my other cousin. They all my brother and my cousin's family, they all own the company now. But next generation. So I grew up in the construction, home design space.
So you're very comfortable in that environment.
Yeah.
It was a kind of a
Yeah.
unique intersection of here's the show, here's you, but also your background of why you would be, kind of the perfect fit, right?
Yeah, but also, like, I left the family. I thought, I don't want to work at I don't want to work at a home
Right,
construction thing. That wasn't my thing. I want to be on TV. And then meanwhile, it's just really funny how the two worlds kind of met. But I don't, at the time, it's like I grew up around it and in the environment, but it's not like I knew a lot about it. But I was very familiar. I was very comfortable in the space. And Sell This House really ended up becoming, it was like the second or third show ever in the design space, home design. It was the second or third show ever. And we were, the show was nominated. And so here we are. Sure, I know I'm at the Emmys. And I was also dating Michael Keaton at the time. And so, yeah.
Dating Batman.
I was dating Batman.
That's
yep.
amazing.
For 3 years, we dated.
Wow.
And, and it was just wild. It was like, there I was. And I got hired on Entertainment Tonight, and then Sell This House turned into Sell This House Extreme, and Move This House, and then
It's syndicated globally.
and just the whole thing.
Huge, right?
Yeah. So for
Huge
about
franchise.
15 years, I was very busy, very, very busy, turning down work. I was getting offered jobs, turning it down. Like I was in the New York, crossword puzzle, the famous crossword puzzle.
You're
My name.
in pop culture at that point.
I was in pop culture.
Yeah.
I was in the breakdown saying, we want a Tanya Memme type for this TV show. And I'm like, it was
That's
just
how you know you made it.
It was nuts. Yeah, it was wonderful.
So take me back to that audition for Sell This House. Did you have any inkling that there was something special here, or how did you approach it?
Well, it's interesting you say that. So the Sell This House audition was a disaster in my mind. I got there late. I was 2.5 hours late. I was very hot. It was in the middle of summer. I was not in a good mood. I had 4 other auditions that day. I was just late. And we didn't have cell phones then, right? Because this was like 2000, the year 2000. And it was at a hotel, and you'd have to call up to the room or whatever. Well, they weren't answering. And so I go down the front desk, call my agent, and I'm like, I don't know where the room is. Like, completely. I'm an hour late. I don't know where to go. So they gave me the wrong room. So finally, I'm sitting outside this one room, and I'm waiting for the audition. And then so that happened, and I walk in. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm never going to get this. Let's just get through it, whatever. So they said, yeah, so what we want you to do is they were all waiting for me. Like, they were sitting there waiting, which made me feel very uncomfortable. And I was the last person. And they waited like over an hour. And they said, okay, so what we want you to do is come on in. So we're going to have you leave the room, come on in, introduce the show, tell me your name, introduce the show, introduce the homeowners, and kind of set up the scene. And then walk around the room and talk to us about what you see in the room and how possibly you can change it.
Did you have any sides ahead of time? Did you?
No.
No. So you had to make that up on the spot. Yeah. And you're late. You're like hot, flustered. You're just like
all of it.
Huh.
All of it.
Oh, I'm just like I'm getting uncomfortable thinking about how I would approach that. Right. Wow.
So I made a joke of it. Because I was thinking, okay, I got to think on my feet really fast. How am I going to do this? So I remember just standing there and going, okay. So I walked out. I go, okay, well, let's make this funny so that they don't forget me. Because I didn't care. There was one of those things I thought, I'm probably not going to get this. So let's just wing it. And so I was like, hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Memme, and welcome to Sell This House. And today we're in Washington, D.C., and we're with Greg and Wilma. Now, Greg and Wilma seem to fight all the time because Wilma loves all of her tchotchkes. If you see, they're on like all of her shelves, and they're from all these different places around the world. And Greg hates her tchotchkes, so they're constantly fighting. Greg has a turtle. I literally said this. He has a turtle, and he loves letting the turtle in and out of the house. And Wilma doesn't like the turtle because she wants it outside because it makes a mess every time it comes in the house. So we're going to reorganize, redesign, and stage this house so they can finally get it sold. I just did something
That's
like that. You know?
Off the cuff.
Off the cuff. I must have done something right. But I just had this, and they were on the floor laughing because I thought, I don't care about this audition. I don't care. I'm here. I'm an hour late and I'm not going to get it anyway. So this is what I'm thinking in my mind, right? And then they sat me down and they said, well, we want to know, like, can you do voiceovers? And I had done a million voiceovers for DirecTV. So that had prepared me. Then they, so all these things. So there was different aspects of the interview. And then they sat me down again and, we talked. And then they were like, tell me about your background. Then I told them about how my family owns a construction business. So it's just interesting how everything, because I was late, I was in the right frame of mind. So, but I will say this, I was not the first one chosen. From what I know, Samantha Harris actually was chosen to host the show, but she was already contracted up with a different show. So I was the second one chosen and I said yes to the show. And so I ended up getting the show. Yeah.
There's so much of, there's like that quote, so much of one's success depends on who else isn't available.
Yeah,
like, it's just how
available.
It goes. And you're like, great, I'm here, let's do it.
I'm great.
And then of course you made it your own. And now I just, that mindset you had at the time of the audition is really interesting because you hear that a lot where there's times when you prepare and you knock it out of the park. And there's times when people feel like, I don't care, I'm just going to go for it. And they also knock it out of the park. So what did like that mindset of not caring or, I have to feel like it relaxes you? Like, what are you feeling at that time? And do you still kind of have that sometimes? Like, is there a time when you channel that, like, I don't care, here we go kind of attitude?
Yeah. I mean, it is the I don't care, whatever attitude, but that comes with a lot of rejection. It comes with a lot of experience. It comes with lots of ups and downs where you realize that sometimes when you push and push and push and push and try so hard, you put out the wrong vibration, the wrong energy. And sometimes when you're just there going, okay, I'm going to let this come to me a little more. And it's really hard to get into that space, but you will get to that space at some point when you're worn down enough. It's almost like I've interviewed over 100 people on my podcast, right? How many people have hit rock bottom? Well, when you're at rock bottom, you're so worn down that that's finally when you really become the most authentic version of yourself. Do you know what I mean? Now, it's a very dramatic way of answering your question.
Following that logic for a moment, like preparation can kind of be a shield in a way where hitting that rock bottom, revealing your most authentic self, there's no shield anymore. There's nothing in front of you. It's just like, here's who I am and I'm just going to go for it.
And that's it. And I don't care what you think.
And there's something very valid about that too, right?
Yeah, very valid.
Huh.
And so I had tapped into that because I was so worn out that day. And my authenticity is I love humor. I consider myself to be a very funny person, but not a lot of people. If you watch the show, you'd know. One of the biggest compliments I got on the show was like, oh my God, I love, you're so, I'm always making fun of myself. I love physical comedy. Like I was called Lucille Ball in school and, but I was never able to express that part of myself because I never got those comedic roles. But whenever I was able to express that on camera, people loved it. And that is really innately who I am. I'm very I'm always joking around all the time.
You had that when you walked in here. I could tell. And that kind of, there's just an ease about you when that comes across.
Yeah,
disarming.
I'm just like, right. I'm like, I need to do my makeup. I know I'm not looking great right now, and I'll be ready in 5 minutes.
But it is very human, and there's a connection that happens, right? When you just do away with all that other stuff.
Yeah, and so I had tapped into, without knowing, my authentic self with just being funny, because it's easy for me, especially when I'm pissed off, and I can be funny. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. Because you're just like,
what the heck? Just
get out of your own way, and like, here we go.
Yeah.
How would you have, if you had more time and you were like approaching it like a normal audition, at least at that time for you, how would you have approached it? And would you have used that comedic side of yourself?
I don't think so. No. First of all, there was no preparation. So some auditions, they give you a prep and sometimes they don't. They just wanted me to show up. I think they already knew who I was and they were, excited to interview me, but I wasn't given any information ahead of time. Really.
So what did you think you were auditioning for? Just like
Like
this
a home
loose
design
idea?
show.
Okay.
New home design show.
And that's about it.
Yeah. And to me, it seemed like a smaller show, and it was just like one of those. So I wasn't excited about it. I was ready for something bigger. I was like, okay, I'll go, whatever. And then I think I was making like $1,300 a week on the show, and I wasn't happy with that. And so I was like, with my agent, get me on a bigger show, please. Like,
when you first signed on to it?
When I first got the job, I remember, I think it was $1,300 an episode or $1,200 or something like that, just over $1,000.
Yeah.
And it was an episode, and it took 3 days to film each episode. And that was what my beginning rate was. And, at the time, like Robotica was triple, quadruple that, lot more than that per episode. And so, and those were the rates back then. Now it's back to the $1,300 an episode, for most people.
And a buyout, right?
And a buyout, yeah. But yeah, so it was just, I didn't see where the potential of the show until I started seeing the potential of the show.
And when did you, what was that moment where you really saw that the show was more than you thought it was?
About 4 years into it, when our show was nominated against Martha Stewart, I knew that we had a little charmed little show here.
Something special if you're in the same sentence as Martha Stewart, right?
Yeah, and I was starting to get recognized down the street, and I was like, that was when my star was on the rise, and I was dating celebrities, and it was like getting invited to every Hollywood party, and
long way from the farm.
Hosting with celebrities, a long way from the farm. And it happened, it didn't happen fast at all. And then it happened fast when it happened. And so there was a good 10, 15 years where I was right in there, living the Hollywood life. And it was awesome. It was great. I look back with all so amazing memories. There's a lot of, ups and downs through it all. The business is tough. The business is really, really, really tough.
Yeah.
But I'm focusing on the wonderful side of it.
Because there's always both, right? Like there's always
both. Especially for a woman back in those days, it was very, very, all the stories that you've heard about Hollywood, I've experienced most of it. And, I weathered my way through it with my integrity still in check. So I can look back and know that I probably could have gone a lot further in my career, but I can look at myself in the mirror when I wake up in the morning now. So,
well, that counts for everything,
that counts for a lot.
Right? Yeah. You like who you see, and you're like, yep.
I do.
You didn't lose yourself in the process, right?
It's like
maybe
you're
there's a
maybe a little bit on the way.
Well, I can relate to that.
I can maybe just a little, but
but you got to go to the line to figure out what your line is, right?
Yeah, you gotta. Well, it's not even going to the line. It's like you get yourself in situations where you're like, how do I get myself out of this? And so you have to navigate it very carefully, to get yourself out. And so it's during those moments where you're like, so how did I get myself in this situation? What did I do? But it's just, it's a hard business. It's a tough business, especially being like so young and so naive and coming from a sod farm. And so I learned a lot of lessons the hard way, but I also, it was like equal. I had a lot of amazing experience, a lot of tough experiences, but it all has made me who I am today. So, I only look back on it like, wow, I did that. I survived. I actually survived it. I did it.
That's right. That's right. So when you were getting recognized and things in the street, those initial interactions, what are you feeling at that time? Like, it has to be this kind of surreal.
It was.
Yeah.
It was surreal, but it was like, okay, this is exactly what I always wanted. I expected this. Like, it was weird. When you're young and you think you're invincible, I just kind of I liked it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was great. I always loved my fans. I always loved them dearly. I would give them my time. I would give them my eye contact. I would listen to their stories. And it was really nice. The only time that it would be hard sometimes, I remember this one time I was, I used to travel so much. So I lived out of a suitcase for 10, 12 years. Literally, I was at home in my house for 1 week every month. I was gone and sometimes I wasn't even at home for 4 months. So it was literally putting in one suitcase and picking up the next. And it was nuts. And so you're tired. It's exhausting. So I remember this one time I got onto the airplane and this guy's taking selfies of me with a submarine in my mouth, right? And I'm like, really? Really? And so I put the sandwich down. I'm like, you really got to do that. Can you not ask me for a photo? Like, I was not happy that day. So that happened a couple of times where they take pictures when you're in these these very compromised situations. I'm like, just ask for a photo, But anyway, yeah. So that's when it can get a little bit intrusive when, you think you're flying under the radar and, they sneak photos and stuff. But look, I would be so happy for that to happen now. I'm not even, I had this huge. I get recognized sometimes now, but not as much. It's a younger generation now, I'm ready, and I passed the baton over. I'm ready to I did that a little while ago, pass the baton to those people now. That for me, it's not. I don't need the fame. I don't need the attention. I just love what I do because I want to change lives now.
Yeah. And you talk about passing the baton, but how did you come to that realization? Because it's like, you mentioned that you would love for that to happen now, but at the same time, having gone through all that, that's still a deep part of you.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, would I love for that to happen now? I don't know. I'm just so happy with with who I am now that I don't really think of it that way anymore. So I'm so happy I experienced all of that. But then there came a time in the business where it was just time for me to take a few steps back. I wanted to put more energy into my daughter. She's 14 now, but at the time she was like 10. And I thought, yeah, she's coming into those years where because I would take her on the road. We'd be traveling. She was on shows with me. She was on a show called Home and Family on Hallmark Channel. She was on that show with me. And then I just realized it was time for me. Lots of ups and downs in my life during that time. And I was just, I kind of want to transition. The business started changing. There was, the Me Too movement happened. There was all these things, all this just transitions in the business in so many ways. And it just wasn't making me as happy. I love working. I love getting in front of the camera and hosting and doing what I do. But the business was really becoming more and more difficult for me. And I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this anymore. So I really wasn't anymore. And so I was like, if people know me well enough, they want to hire me, they can. I'll audition here and there, but I don't want to get caught up in this business like this anymore. And
that hustle, right?
Yeah, and I was on a show and there was just a lot that was going on. And I was like, it just became really, really difficult to still hang on to this business in the way that we were all trying to hang on to it as it's shifting and changing and reality TV is taking over and we're getting paid less and working longer hours. And it just became this thing. And I was a mom and I wanted to be there for my daughter more. So it was a big shift for me. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to kind of hand it off over to the next person that wants to grind it out, like really grind it out and deal with all of that. And so now when I work, I take on jobs that just, I take on jobs that make me happy. That's all. And I have to like the people I'm working with.
But you can set those standards for yourself now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I started a whole other thing. I'm doing public speaking. I mean, I love public speaking now. That is just amazing for me.
Yeah. I mean, and the skills that you developed over many years in television, I mean, they're transferable, right? And now you could, mentioning passing the baton, now what you're doing is you're coaching other people to do the same, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm coaching other people because I coach people that are really afraid to get on stage, get on camera, and build their brand with video and how to communicate, how to connect, how to speak authentically through their video to build their dream brand. People that are building a course or people that, whatever it is, even media training. I've done some media training with some celebrities that are like, oh my gosh, I'm, never done red carpets before. What do I do? So I'll sit them down and do lots of media training with them. So it's, but I started this, the public speaking, first of all, is really kind of taken a life of its own. But I have to say, transitioning from TV to then going through a very difficult time in my life with, where am I going to go next and this and that. And the business just became really difficult. And to get back on stage again was hard for me. So I can relate to people who are afraid to get on stage from a different perspective, but from the same perspective, how hard that is to do that.
Why was it hard for you, you think?
I had lost a lot of my confidence along the way. It was interesting. Like when you're on camera and your talent, there's a lot of expectations. And there was a show that I was on that just really was very emotionally, very difficult for me. And I was on it for 5 years. And it just became more, and I was also struggling through my marriage, So I ended up quitting the show and leaving my marriage all within the same time. I wouldn't suggest anybody to do that.
No, I mean, a job change and,
Yeah.
divorces, I mean, those are huge
And it
changes,
was
one at a
huge.
time. And
And I was a mom, single
Yeah.
mom, and she
Yeah.
was little. And at the same time, like, she saw the resilience in me and knew that I knew I had to make a change. I knew that it was important. Both of those things I needed to change. And, my ex-husband, we get along so great now. It's awesome. He's amazing. He's an amazing father. So it's all good there. But it was time for me to move on from this particular chapter in my life. And it did a number on me. It was really draining. It was really difficult. I went from like having the biggest career, ever on TV for me, and then kind of losing everything and figuring out like, who am I? Who am I without the accolades? Like, what
Right.
does this mean when the phone stops ringing and I'm not getting the jobs anymore and all this stuff? And so I realized that I just wasn't cut out for the fight anymore. And I wanted to change my life. And thank God I did, because this business is so different now than it even was when I decided to change. So I was able to sort of rebuild the direction that I wanted to go during the years where I think a lot of people were still sort of hanging on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And really, public speaking is in my heart. It's what I've ultimately, like, I love public speaking. I love it. I love encouraging people. I love talking about authentic communication, but also resilience. And then, with the Palisades fires, I just went through that. So,
You lost your home.
pretty much, I mean, it's still there, but we can't live in it for 2 years, and we have to throw everything away. And I have to go back every week to go and work on it and go back. And so it's constant fighting with the insurance companies, but it's like,
That's just draining.
it's
It has
just,
to be.
you think that you're on the next, okay, got through that. Now we're on our way. And then this happens. So, but it's taught me resilience, and it's just, my whole life has been filled with so much color and so much adventure. And so I take on the things in life that are hard as an adventure now. I'm like, all right, bring it on. Okay. Because I know there's going to be an end to it.
Yep.
And I know that the pendulum always swings the other direction.
And what do you say are some common fears or problems that people have things that come up across multiple clients that you're coaching?
Well, it's when we first start, they're just so paranoid to get on camera. And the first thing is like, I don't like my voice. That's a big one. I don't like my voice. I'm really afraid of what others are going to think. I'm afraid of what my family is going to think. I'm afraid of what some of my best friends are going to think. If I go on social media and start speaking from my heart or build the brand I want to build. So a lot of it is mindset work. And I got my certificate in life coaching by Alyssa Nobrega for her somatic coaching. It's not really called somatic coaching, but there's somatic work in it. And so I took that. I studied for like very, very hard, put all my time, energy into just getting certified, enough to be able to teach people this mindset to then set them up so they can win in their videos. So a lot of it is mindset work, but it's I'm not good enough. I'm imposter syndrome. How do I get out there and do it? Or they just don't really feel like they like the way that they speak or talk or all that stuff. So yeah, so we start there.
Right. So
and we do the mindset stuff.
I'm curious about what does that entail to getting your certification in life coaching?
Oh,
Like, what does that exactly mean?
her program really helped us with learning how the subconscious mind works, looking for cues and looking for ways in which you can go into the body and go inward and release stress and tension and bad memories. And like, just you're releasing it's like a charge, like where you have charge in your body, which can cause a lot of different things that can really build up in your system. And so it's a whole way of doing, like, how like when you think of hypnotherapy, right? Hypnotherapy is a series of processes where you bring somebody through this whole journey and whatever. And what she taught us was kind of the same, where you can ask certain questions to get to the root of what's really there standing in the way. So I can really work with my clients and get to the root of what's really holding them back on camera.
That sounds fascinating, and I would not have guessed that that's what life coaching.
Well, the one that
you're
is,
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just about how to bring out your own experience and teach it, but it's really going deep into your clients and the people that you're trying to help.
Oh, yeah. We do a lot of work. Yeah, I go deep. I really want to see them thrive. That is my goal. I want to see them create the brand that they've always wanted to create. I teach them basic editing because a lot of them too is editing. Like the tech holds them back, right? So I get into all that. I'll literally pick up my phone. Okay, say, pick up your phone, right? I'm going to show you how to post on Instagram right now.
So I see. So to get them to the level that they want to grow to, they have to get out of their own way, understand who they are in a way that they've never. So it's not just a matter of, well, you know, it's best to stand up straight and, you know, project, you know, to the back of the room.
Deep.
This is deep. Okay.
We go deep. I go deep with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was there and I've been through so many transitions in my career where I lost confidence. I mean, it's hard to get up there in front of the camera every day for the past 25 years where people are waiting for you to mess up, where you're dealing with like the behind the scenes drama of what's going on set or not, with contracts, with this, with that, you know.
With all the transition that you've talked about, what's been the constant in your mind in terms of the way that you've navigated all that? Like, how have you found your center?
Yeah, I lost it a couple of times along the way, but I think experiencing so much, you know, and then the fires were just on top of it, that I just know who I am now. You know, I knew who I was a few years ago. I found really, truly who I am. And when you really, truly step into that I feel like I can deal with just about anything in life and I'm still going to see the glass half full. I have my moments where I don't. I really do have my moments where I have my bad days. Every once in a while, we all do. But for the most part, I really, you know, have grown into really liking who I am and the decisions that I've made, you know? And so if that makes any sense of what I'm saying, but I think a lot of it is weathering the storm and seeing how resilient you really are, where you keep coming out on the other end. And life has this way of gifting you so much when you walk through some of the hardest times in your life. Because usually when you're going through a really hard time, there's a big decision that needs to be made, that you need to make, that only you know that you need to make, that's going to get you onto the other side. A lot of us are very afraid to make that decision because a lot of times they're very difficult decisions to make. It could be changing your entire life. It could be leaving your spouse. It could be challenging yourself in a way you've never challenged yourself before.
And sometimes whatever you're feeling, it's the delaying of the decision that's often worse than...
It's worse.
Because it's, even if you're on, you know, the beginning of a path that's rough, at least you're headed in a direction.
You're never going to succeed if you're indecisive. You have to make a decision, whether it's the wrong decision or the right decision. Most of the times, if you make the wrong decision, you can undo it anyways. You really can. Sometimes you can't, but at least you made a decision, and then you can make the next decision from that decision.
Right. But, well, I hear sometimes, you know, just start badly, because then you can fix it as you go. Just start.
Just move, go. Because if you don't, you're not going to succeed because you're not making a decision.
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean? You're not, you're
absolutely.
Not, so.
What did going through the certification process of life coaching teach you, and even now, just practicing it daily, teach you about yourself?
I think what it did is it really gave me the tools, the extra like icing on the cake, so that I can take what I've learned from being on camera for 25 years. And then I take what she's taught me, what Alyssa Nobriga has taught me, and I teach confidence on camera and authentic communication and how to build your brand on video in a way that no one else does, in a way that I believe really makes a difference in the way that they see themselves, so that they gain the confidence to create the brand that they've always wanted to create. Because we all need to be on video now, right? Whether we hate it or not.
Right. It's coming for you.
It, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm not in the mood either. But it's given me the tools to be able to create. I have an online course now that I have, and it's called Mastering the Spotlight, Crush It on Camera. We do mindset work in there. I really believe that I teach it in a way that no one else does, that really kind of resonates deeply with people, so that by the time they're done, they're like, all right, I can do this. I can do this. I have this 30-day challenge where every day, so I created these videos, and they're funny videos, like they're hilarious, and they're a 3-minute video, and they're like, okay, today, and I show up in their inbox. I'm like, today, this is your challenge for the day. And you have to talk to me about the worst hairstyle you've ever had as a kid and how much you resented your parents for it. Okay, go. Right. And so and every day is a completely different thing. So they're being told what to do, how long to make it, this and that. And then they post it in the private Facebook group.
Right.
But they have to do one every day for 30 days. And everyone is laughing. I give out awards. I give out prizes. And it is so funny. And then I teach them how to do, okay, now next I want you to add lighting in there, And so then I give them a bunch of lighting tips. So then they start making their videos for that week with the right lighting. And I'm like, okay, so now I want you to add in sound. And so I teach them, here's this mic, there's that kind of mic, that kind of mic. And then they start doing it with better sound. And now we're going to talk about the background. So, and I talk about like Zoom calls, how to set up the background, how to look more professional. Talk to them, I want you to go outside. I want you to go inside. I want you to go to a hotel lobby. And then I get them like, by the time they're done, they are creating videos with their hair a mess. Who knows where they're filming. And they literally are just laughing so hard and having so much fun that they get over all of the stuff. And we do mindset work. And so between the course and the 30-day challenge, it literally transforms lives. Yeah.
I love that. And I love how you gave that prompt about the silly hairstyle, because it's like, first of all, it's funny.
Yeah.
And so you just get over this initial feeling of like, when you're on camera, you kind of want to keep it in a little bit and you can be a little stiff, but it's like, you just have to embarrass yourself and just say the thing.
Yeah.
And you realize it's not that big of a deal. And then you start talking about the technical stuff.
Yeah.
But you get them kind of in the right communicating style.
And then they see everybody doing it, and it's in a private Facebook page. So
right.
No one's seeing except for the people doing it. And then they start laughing at each other. We're all laughing together. Then we're like giving comments. And then I give prizes for whoever was the most supportive. They're not allowed to do negative comments. Like you could do this better. No, there's none of that. It's all positive. What do you see that's good? And by the end, everyone knows each other so well. They're dancing and there's one where I make them dance. A couple of them, they have to do a dance off. And so, one they do a fashion show. So you have to set up your camera so that it's in your closet, and you have to like come out the door of your closet and do 3 outfits and just tell me about your outfits, go back in, change the next.
Yeah.
I get them doing stupid stuff because
just get over it.
Just get over it.
That
That's
feeling
what it is.
of anxiousness, of being nervous, right?
Yeah.
And you realize like you're fine, you didn't die.
You're fine. And then I sometimes I'll call them going, how did that feel? So it's a very interactive, very fun thing. And, so they do the course and it's not expensive. I have them just, it's 24 videos or whatever. And then, they get me a couple times a month coaching and training and talking and telling stories and to get them. And then we do like, technical setup, editing, all that stuff. And then I have I'm using people that I know in my life. So my network of people from the business. I just had a friend of mine that I interviewed. He has 5 million followers on social media. So I'm like, I'm going to interview Justin and we're going to learn about all the secrets on how he did it. I mean, that's gold.
Huge.
So I'll give that video to the people that joined my course.
I want to touch on, you mentioned interviewing, that you teach interviewing. Of course you do. Here we are in this conversation now. What advice do you have for what makes a good podcast interview, or the host sitting across from you right now?
So I say hosting 101
is
learning the art of listening as an interviewer. And you're very good at it, by the way. Yeah,
Thank
you're very
you.
good.
Oh, thank you.
Because so the thing is, a lot of TV hosts and podcast hosts, in deep down inside, they want to be the star. Especially with TV hosting. But if you're interviewing a celebrity and you want to be the star and you make it all about yourself, that celebrity could very much walk off the red carpet.
They won't be going back to you.
They will not be going back to you. They have to be the star, and you have to make them the star. No matter who you're interviewing, even if it's whoever lives in on a sod farm, you're interviewing them for whatever, and that's they raise cattle and horses, whoever it is, you make them the star, because the reason why that you're interviewing them is to learn about them. So it's never make the interview about yourself. And now that I've said that, when you watch interviews, you'll see some hosts that make it about themselves.
What are ways that they do that? Do they try to crack jokes and what are they doing to make it about themselves?
Okay, so
or talking a lot,
yeah. So here's an example. If I ask you a question, I'll be and I talk to my students about this. So when I was 12, I really, really loved pop culture, and I was a huge Madonna fan. And so when I would listen to Madonna music, I would do this and I would do that, and I would just, and I loved her music, and I would watch all her videos, and it was that thing. So like, did you ever have a time in your life when you thought that pop culture was kind of going in the wrong direction? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, they will go on and on and on.
I just kind of laughed when you did that because I saw it. Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm expecting something about Madonna or whatever, some reason that they're bringing up their own backstory.
It's to talk about themselves.
But there wasn't a reason.
No.
It's like that part wasn't necessary, but it's just a way to inject themselves.
Yes. Where the question is, back in the day in the 80s, did you think that pop culture was on par with, the way that we look at songs today? Or
especially if their backstory is longer than the question itself, right? Like,
yes.
It's, get to the point.
Get to the point.
What are you trying to ask me? What do you want to know? Okay. So
there's many ways which they do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I think a lot of people would assume that it's about talking, but it's not. It's about listening first.
It's about listening first. So let's say that your podcast, let's put it out there, that it's going to be the biggest podcast out there. And you are hired by a company now that is producing, you're making a lot of money, you're doing great. Well, that company possibly may want you to ask a series of questions that you have to ask to get for your sponsors or whatever, right? People that are paying for it, they're like, well, I want you to ask this celebrity this question. And so I went through this when I was doing all the red carpet events. So I was working for like CBS and so I'd go on these red carpets, People's Choice Awards, like different awards, right? So they would say, well, I want you to ask Jennifer Aniston this. And some of them are like uncomfortable questions. I'm like, I don't know if I want to ask Jennifer Aniston these questions.
Are they based on products that they're trying to promote or?
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
One time they wanted me to ask her what color her underwear were.
Come on.
There was something about that, and I didn't ask.
How could you ask that?
I didn't. But
obviously you didn't. But how could someone think that is a question you can ask? But I guess
they wanted me to crack a joke. It had to do with some dress that she was wearing. I don't know, or something in the news. They wanted me to ask that. I didn't. But you have to get as many of the questions in. But if she's talking about the time that she spent with her best friend in the south of France last week, I'm not going to ask her, what did you eat for breakfast yesterday? Not then, or just something completely unrelated, because it was a question that they wanted me to ask. So the art of listening is being able to ask those questions at the appropriate time so that there's flow in the interview. So you're listening and you're asking questions based on the last answer that makes sense, where then you can tie in the questions that the network wants you to ask. And you have to get as many of those in. And really the network wants that. They want those questions answered. But the celebrity or the person you're interviewing will get very frustrated if you're not asking the next appropriate question that makes the interview flow. People aren't going to open up to you if they don't know, like, or trust you. They're not going to open up to you. So sometimes I'm sure you've had really tough interviews. So the key to that is really listening and asking them questions that they're excited to answer so that you can gain their trust, so that then you can go for the deeper, more difficult questions. You don't start off with a deeper question and where you're going to go right for that question right at the top, because they don't know who you are. They don't, especially when you're interviewing celebrities, like they need to trust you. So it's a whole way of showing them that you've researched who they are, that you know who they are, and always find something about that person that no one you think has ever asked. Like, ask a question you don't think anyone has ever asked them. Ask them about like their favorite red shoes that they posted last year.
Some detail
that's important to them that would have gone so under the radar. Just remember one thing, because then they would think, well, I interviewed Hugh Jackman once, and I said to him, I said, wow, you started off, this was before he had the big music. He was in musical theater way before. He was on Broadway way before the movies, right? Mm-hmm. And so he was the lead in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Oh, yeah. And I had researched this, and I love theater. I love New York. And so I said to him, wow, so how was this movie compared to Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat? Because the characters are so, what it's like for you to just do completely different roles. He was so impressed that I knew that he was in that play in New York City. He goes, wow, you really did the research. He goes, okay, that's a great question. And he was excited to talk to me. So then after that, then you listen to where he takes you on that journey and make sure, because if they think you're not listening, they're out. They're out. They have a short fuse with stuff.
Short fuse, and they're doing many per day, right?
Many per day.
I mean, you see some of those interview or not videos online of just celebrities looking worn out, right?
They're
like,
worn out.
Or
They're
the
tired.
person next to them is answering,
Yeah.
and they're like checked out. Look at
Checked
and those
out.
are memes that are circulated, but it's because they get exhausted.
Yeah.
People asking them all day
The same questions.
the same questions. How could they not? They're human.
They're the same questions because the networks usually want the same questions. But I'm only talking about those skills because when you bring them into a podcast, you bring them into your interviewing, whether it's your mother or whether it's the most famous person in town. These are skills that are very important when you're interviewing. So it's because interviewing there's a knack to it. There's a thing to it, and so it's learning all those little things.
I love that. I think that's great advice. So thank you.
You're welcome.
This is something that I ask every guest. It's
Okay.
called The Rule I Break. So every industry has its rules, and some are there for a reason, and some are just begging to be broken. So what's a rule in your field that you don't follow or believe in?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay. In my field that I don't follow, I am comfortable saying no. And I'm comfortable saying no with things that most people probably wouldn't say no with if it doesn't resonate with me or if it doesn't fit right with me now.
What's an example, if you can share?
So I was I said no to a project because the travel schedule was too much where I just needed to focus on my daughter more. So I won't always say no to something because it's another hosting job. It has to fit my lifestyle now. It has to fit my wanting to be. So I'll host shows, but I don't want to be away for more than 3 weeks at a time. So like 3 weeks is even pushing it. But if I can come home, so this was like one of those things where, I had to be gone for like 6 months and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So, but I don't know if that's breaking a rule.
Well, something that you said was if it doesn't fit your lifestyle now, whereas before, you tell me if this is true, so often we will shape our lifestyle around the opportunity.
Yes.
Whereas now it's like, no, if it doesn't fit me, no, thank you. But whereas you're just like, you're a chameleon. I'll do that. I'll do this. I'll do that. But
yeah, no, not anymore. I mean, you kind of get that way when you're a little bit older. You kind of decide, what do I want to do? What don't I want to do? I mean, and it's the same thing. It has to be how much am I getting paid? Where are the locations? How often do I get to come home? It's all of those things. And so before, I would say yes to just about anything. But now, now I have a lot of responsibility with other humans and animals and stuff in my life at a home and everything. So I take it very, I have to see. And I'm not also caught up in having to make like a lot of money. I'm just not, I don't, like, that's not what drives me anymore. I want to be able to like have a good life and have the things that I need and want, but it doesn't need to be excessive by any means.
how has your idea of success changed now versus when you were starting out?
Oh, well, yeah. Success is not attached to my bank account anymore. That's huge for me. That was a huge realization. It is really just attached to my friends, my community, and how happy I am. My friends, my community, really, they give me a lot of happiness. My connections, my showing up, and I just got back from my girlfriends. We've known each other for 35 years. There's like a little pack of us that we've known each other for so long, and just got back from a girlfriend's weekend. Like, that gives me so much happiness. So it's more the experiences, because when I was really, 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 really busy, I was making a lot of money. I lost out on a lot of experiences, a lot of those moments of connection, of showing up for birthdays, graduations, family events, babies. I have a huge family of cousins. I barely even connected with them during those 10 years. And I try now to like rebuild those relationships and stuff. But it's life. Life can be very full when you Don't equate your self-worth to your bank account. Once you let that go, the money will come, but so will so many more riches in life.
I like to go out with a rapid fire round. Five
Okay. Oh, I'm
five
so bad at
questions.
these.
Say as much or as little as you want. What was the last book you read?
Oh my gosh, it was some spiritual book. I can't remember. It was a Joe Dispenza book. It was Joe Dispenza book.
Okay. What was that about? A spiritual book.
The
What did that
spiritual
do for
book
you?
was just about how your life is dictated by your thoughts. Kind of like that. Yeah. He's a scientist and so it was a lot of it was like how you think becomes a thought is energy and how you can actually create your future by the things that you think today.
What's a movie you love rewatching?
Oh, Somewhere in Time is my favorite movie. You've probably never even heard of it.
What's that? No, I don't think so.
It's oh my gosh, who are the main actors? Oh my gosh, I'm horrible at it.
It doesn't matter. That's okay. What's Somewhere in Time?
Somewhere
I
in
love
Time.
movies.
It's a
I don't know
romance
that.
movie, and
Okay.
and it's just so beautiful. And it's about this man who he fell in love. No, this man had to go back in time to meet the woman of his dreams, but then he ended up like he was studying how to go back in time and does time travel actually exist. And so and I've watched it a million times. So he actually was able to make himself go back in time. But then one of the things is you have to like clear your room and clear everything that you see in the room of anything that's in the present time. And he left a penny in his pocket that said the current time, not the past time. So he had fallen in love with this woman. It was this whole romance. He pulls out the penny, and then he was thrown back into the future time. And she came back into his house and into his life as a very, very, very old woman. But he was still in his 30s. And because she had, like, so it was this whole thing. And I'm just like bawling. It's a great, it's a great, great movie.
If it wasn't this, what's another career field you could see yourself in?
Oh, I could see myself in... well, I am doing public speaking now, so I guess it's a whole other career. But I wanted to own a spa one day. Yeah. I wanted to own a spa. So that might have been something that I might have been if it was a different lifetime.
Worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Keep your head up. You'll get through it.
Very generic.
It's just awful. Yeah, very generic.
Not tailored to you or your situation. Just keep your head up, you'll get through it.
Yeah, keep your head up. You'll be fine. Keep your head up.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Well, one of them was the day that my dad said that if you're ever fearful, you need to get back on that horse and just ride right through that fear.
Right.
And the only way you can get through fear is to keep facing it and going through it. So if you're afraid to get on stage, go get on stage.
Yeah. Hearing your story now and then looking back to the beginning of the conversation, your first time on stage, what is euthanasia, right?
Yeah.
And then but that lesson of you get back out there and then look at what came after.
Yeah. And so since then, I really have anything that I'm fearful, I usually go and face it. I go do it.
You have to, right?
It's gotten me in trouble sometimes, but most of the times it hasn't.
Where can people find you or learn about your work?
On Instagram. So you can follow me at Tanya Memme Official. I have my YouTube channel that I'm building back. It's all Tanya Memme Official. The Facebook page too. And then I would say I have a website, but I'm getting it rebuilt and updated now. But yeah, I mean, I'm out there. You Google my name. I am so out there.
You come up.
Yeah, I definitely come up.
Tanya, this was such an honor to talk to you. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your story. This was just so inspiring and insightful and thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.